This is 42nd Street Pete, and this is a rather different and special installment of Grindhouse Purgatory. It's been a couple of years since we lost our friend Sid Haig at 80 years old, and Sid was probably one of the most beloved actors and human beings ever to attend a convention or step in front of a camera. Well, about 10 years or so ago, we were at this convention called Saturday Nightmares in, I believe it was East Rutherford, when Sid, myself, and Rob Housechild sat down for roughly 4 to 5 hours and did a complete career overview interview. The purpose of this interview was eventually to release the interview on DVD and for Sid to be able to use the interview to write his own biography. Well, as things progressed, I paid to have the DVD edited and all that other stuff. I sort of lost touch with Sid, and Sid sort of lost touch with me. We got back in touch, unfortunately, close to the period where he had passed away. So the project was never realized. What I did with the project, however, was I transcribed it to the best of my ability in the Something Weird special edition, the Sid Haig tribute issue. Now, I'm sitting with this DVD and thinking, probably a lot of other people were thinking too, what I could do with this thing. Did pay to have it edited, but in thinking about how Sid was, and how charitable Sid was, and how cool Sid was with his fans, Sid isn't around to share in any of the profits of this whole thing. So I thought that Sid would really appreciate it if I just gave it back to his fans, which is what I'm going to do right here. It's a long interview. It covers his complete career from soup to nuts. We sort of stay away from the Rob Zombie bullshit, because that was a crux of annoyance in probably every big interview we ever did, was that they always brought that up like he never did anything else. So this DVD, or this segment of Grindhouse Purgatory, is probably going to be in 3 parts, because like I said, this was a long interview, and for whatever reason, the person I paid to edit, which I won't mention, decided to take a bunch of key questions and use them as extras. So that's going to be probably part 3 of this whole thing. Now, I've spoken to Joe Ripple from Scares That Cares, and he has a charity going, Uncle Sid's Kids, which basically helps terminally ill children. That's what Scares That Cares does. Sid was very down with that charity. Hanging around with Sid, you start to realize what a great human being he is, and some of that rubs off on you. And what happened with me was I started what I called the 42P Food Project back during the pandemic, and basically raised $3,000 of selling my convention merchandise and whatever I had laying around here to buy food for the local food pantries, which were really hurting. So, be that as it may, like I said, I'm not going to make a dime doing this. I'm giving it back to Sid's fans as he would want me to do. But if you feel the inclination, please feel free to donate to either of those charities. You can reach Joe Ripple on Facebook, or Scares That Cares. You can Google that and find out how to get to him. As for me, my PayPal was Mr. 42nd Street MR 42, MR 42nd Street Pete spelled out at yahoo.com if you feel like you want to donate to the food project. If you want something for donating to the food project, let me know and I can throw you some sleazy DVD or an issue of Screw or something that's laying around here. Unfortunately, I don't have too much, other merchandise left, but anyway, that's the story. It's something I felt that should be shared with Sid's fans, because Sid was just one of those great human beings, unlike some of these mercenary slugs that infest the conventions as of today. Sid never charged the fan for taking a picture with him, always kept his price reasonable, and always appreciated the fans that came up with him and stood there and bullshitted for no matter how long it took, because Sid always made the time for them. Sid was just a great charitable human being, and he always donated a percentage of his convention earnings to Habitat for Humanity and some other charities. So for Halloween, this is 42nd Street Pete giving you the ultimate Sid Haig interview on video. So, you know, if you like it, subscribe. If you like what we're doing, feel free to chip in. There's no obligation to do any of this stuff. It's just I wanted to give back something to a great human being who was a good friend of mine. So mask up, stay safe, and remember Sid as the person he was, the kind, gentle person, despite his, you know, characterizations on screen. Sid Haig was, in a world of con men and assholes that infest the convention business and the movie business in general, Sid was the real deal. Sid was a genuinely caring human being, and we all miss him. So Sid, this one's for you. You all stay safe, mask up, enjoy the video, and if you want to subscribe, hit the like button, whatever. But from me to you, this is 42nd Street Pete saying Happy Halloween, and always remember that Sid was one of the coolest guys ever. Okay, I'll see you on the flip side.
Yeah, it was more than obscure. Okay, I don't know, maybe 6 people have seen this film. I don't know. Yeah, it was a takeoff on the film where wealthy men were hunting down people. Well, they decided that, you know, it would be better if they were hunting down these beautiful women. So they would take the women captive and take them off to this place and then set them free and then run around and try to kill them. And that was that was so bizarre because we had scenes going through the jungle, and you know, I was riding this horse, and they have very small horses over there, okay? And I got the biggest horse that they could find, but still my feet were almost touching the ground. And the poor horse, every time I got on the horse, he would spread out his feet so I wouldn't fall and give this big grunt and then like pee for 2 minutes, okay? And before we could get anything done. And so, you know, you're just working with that stuff. And we were doing a campfire scene at the end of the day, and we were all ready to bed down and everything, and there was this water buffalo that was a bull that was lying on his side, and Eddie Romero said, God, it would be great if you used that bull as a pillow to, you know, to go to sleep. I said, yeah, okay. So John Ashley and I are doing this scene together, and I throw my coffee away and get ready to bed down. And as soon as I leaned up against the bull, of course, he jumped up. And we tried this 2 or 3 times, and I said, this isn't working. Can we do something else? And then he talked to one of the wranglers, and he said, how can we get that bull to stay there? And he said, well, you don't want to do this. And he said, what? And he said, well, if he reaches back and massages the bull's testicles, he'll stay there. And I said, what? And he said, no, come on, let's just do this. Let's just get it done. So I'm one of these guys that, you know, whatever's going to take to get a shot done, let's just do it, okay? So there I am massaging this bull's testicles so that we can get this thing done. And the thing that pissed me off the most, that shot was not in the film.
Right.
Yeah, so, but the bull and I were engaged, and what the hell did we finish? We finished Woman Hunt. They said, Sid, we want you in the next film, and it's going to be this film called Black Mama, White Mama. We'll send you the script, but instead of bringing you back to the States and then turning right around and then going back to the Philippines, that's crazy. So we just want you to stay there. We'll pay you your per diem, and you know, keep your hotel going and all that stuff, and just stay there and wait for us to come. So I said, okay. Well, 5 weeks later, I'm still in the Philippines. We haven't shot a foot of film. Nobody's come over. So I called and I said, what are you guys doing? They said, well, they're trying to decide, you know, who they're going to cast in this. I said, you know, you're going to cast Pam Grier. So find a blonde and let's get this thing done. And the blonde was Margaret Markov, who was a year behind me at the Pasadena Playhouse. So we had known one another for years, okay? So it became this big family reunion. And we had a lot of fun with that film. I had just come home from the Philippines. I was home for a day, and I had to drive into Hollywood. And being in that kind of atmosphere in the jungle, and you know, in the cleaner parts of the Philippines. It was just kind of a pure feeling, you know, and it rained every day for like maybe 20 minutes, and then just cleaned everything off, so everything was kind of fresh, you know. And I got the full impact of smog the day after I landed. I had to go into Hollywood, and my skin was actually burning from the atmosphere, you know. And I went, wow. Jack was responsible basically for the start of the whole blaxploitation era. First with the big dollhouse, and then the big birdcage, and then Coffee. Bob Miner, who was the stunt coordinator for Coffee, really couldn't find enough black stunt people to get the job done, so he had to teach people, like on the spot, how to take a punch, how to throw a punch, how to do falls, this, that, and the other thing. And because of that, he started a whole new group of stunt people, and more black actors were getting work. And, you know, film after film, the thing just started rolling, and Jack Hill was really the one that got the whole movement going in the first place. I was in Foxy Brown.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was, you know, that was a fun situation. Antonio Fargas was in that, and I was playing this kind of whacked out private pilot guy who was just crazier than shit. And that was nuts, because at one point Pam is in the plane with me, and she's getting frisky, shall we say, and I lose control and just drive the plane right into a shack, okay? And so they got this stunt pilot, okay, to do this thing, and he got all nervous about it, and as he was approaching the shack, he veered for some reason, and the wing took the camera right off the camera mount, okay? $250,000 camera shot in the ass, and the camera operator wound up with a black eye, and it was just, that was a total mess, okay? But, you know, get a new camera and, you know, finish the job. That was a very interesting film, because the underwater photography was amazing. It was great. We were shooting, you know, where the Bataan Death Marches took place, and we were shooting in this cove. And at one point, I'm supposed to be walking through the village, and there's a booby trap set up, and I fall into this pit full of crabs. And so they're setting this thing up, and I go over and see what they're doing. They're digging a hole in the ground that was about 2 feet in diameter. And I said, how do you expect me to fall into this? Okay, this is crazy. Doesn't anybody know how to dig a grave? And they went, yeah. I said, well, dig a grave. Only make it 6 feet deep, okay? And then, oh, okay. So they do that. And then I said, I wanted to remind them to spike the claws on the crabs. And they didn't understand what I meant. I said, you take little pieces of bamboo and you stick it in the claws so that they can't open them, okay? Doesn't hurt the crabs, but it just, you know, is going to save me from getting eaten alive by all these crabs. And we get ready to do the shot, and they bring out these 2 huge burlap sacks full of crabs, and it sounds like a flamenco dancers convention in there, okay? They did not spike the claws. So I said, take it back, do what you said, spike the claws, and let's get this thing done. So they finally got that part. So it took 3 days to do, you know, one shot that should have taken like 2 or 3 hours.
You were perennially paired with Vic Diaz, who was like, you know, pretty much established Filipino actor. Sometimes you guys were teamed up as partners. Most of the times you're at each other's throats.
Yeah, Vic Diaz. Vic Diaz was an amazing guy. Vic was kind of the staple character actor of the country, you know. He played everything from cops to bad guys to whatever was necessary. and lived through the Second World War. Found some occupation money, okay, and a big sack of it, and he was totally elated, and running back to his home with this sack of money as a kid, okay, thinking he was going to be the big hero, only to find out that the war was just over, and the Japanese occupation money didn't mean anything. Just totally pissed him off. He was funny, he was obnoxious, but he was vulgar sometimes, but he was funny while he was doing that, because he was so over the top with everything that you just had to laugh. We were shooting on Rojas Boulevard in the Philippines, and it's a very busy area. All of the embassies from all over the world are stationed there on Rojas Boulevard. It's Embassy Row. And we were in front of this casino getting ready to shoot, and he turns to Patrick Wayne and he says, "Patrick Wayne, my friend, have you seen the German helmet of Vic Diaz?" And Patrick goes, "No." And so he whips out his penis right there on Rojas Boulevard, okay? And I went, "Vic, Jesus Christ, put that thing away, okay?" And Patrick Wayne, he was just totally flabbergasted. He didn't know what to say. But that was Vic. When we were doing all of these films, from Bloodbath on through all of the exploitation films, the women in prison films, the blaxploitation films, we were just there because we wanted to make movies, and we wanted to have fun, and we wanted to make a couple of bucks, and that's what we did. And nobody had any idea at all that people were going to recognize these films years from now. It's just, what, if it plays for a couple of weeks at the theater down the street, we've accomplished what we started. It just, some of those films just took off and became cult classics. We weren't necessarily doing it for the paycheck, because the money was not there, believe me.
Correctly.
350 television shows.
Wow.
Yeah. Some of those were series that I did, like Jason and Star Command, Mary Hartman, and McNamara's Band with John Biner. And I was a regular on 3 or 4 shows, Haley Smith and Jones, Just the 10 of Us, People Next Door. I did 9 episodes of Mission Impossible, and that was pretty spectacular, because I felt good about that, only because I felt good about who I was working with, and the show, which was an outstanding show. It was like the #1 show on the air. But at the same time, I was the only actor in Hollywood that did that many guest appearances on Mission Impossible. And Jason of Star Command was interesting from the beginning, because I was playing this evil space Ming the Merciless type character, and was supposed to be just huge and looming over everybody. And they hired Craig Littler to play Jason. Well, Craig and I are the same height, so they can't make him shorter, but they made me taller. So I had these 6-inch platform boots that I wore as a part of my costume.
And you had told a story about they had to make a rather unique helmet for you for that series.
Yeah. And so they said, "Okay, come in, we have to make this helmet for you, and it has to be form-fitting." I said, "Okay." So I went in, and they laid me down on this table and took a paper towel tube and stuck it in my mouth so I could breathe, and they mixed these 2 chemicals together and poured it over my head. And basically, I looked like I had fallen asleep under a cow. And so they, waited until it hardened, and they said, "Okay, we're going to have to cut it off you now." And so they cut away piece by piece until they could lift it off my head, and then they shaped it, and it was this big blob, but it was shaped perfectly when they got through, and it was only maybe 1/4 of an inch thick, and the whole thing weighed like 2 pounds. And to put together, because I was part computer with this helmet on, and had a laser beam eye and all of that business. And so to create the helmet, they went down to the toy store and they bought all kinds of toy models, cars and trains and planes and boats and everything, and they just tore all of the pieces apart and just started gluing stuff onto this helmet. It looked pretty cool. Sprayed the whole thing gold, bing, done. The character was born. This was the most expensive show, kids show on the air, and it was a CBS show. And once it took off, it was crazy. I mean, we were the #1 show on the air, getting a 47 share in that time slot. Okay, which means 47% of the people that had their TV sets on were watching our show. It's pretty cool. And things were going along famously, and it was an amazing show to work on because there were 15 episodes, and instead of having 15 scripts, we had one script. And all 15 episodes were in this one script. And the only way that we could get this done, we had a 5-week shooting schedule to do 15 episodes. And so we would shoot everything in the control room in all 15 episodes all at one time. We would shoot anything that happened in the gangways in all 15 episodes all at the same time. So we were doing things in huge chunks, but you had to keep in your head what episode you were doing and what was going on around you. So it was extremely difficult from that standpoint. It was just totally crazy. But we were getting it done, and everybody was loving the show. And the guy who was the head of children's programming for CBS at the time, they just felt that this guy needed a reward because he had this amazing show on the air, And so they gave him a job programming nighttime, and they gave this woman his job. And she came down on the set one day with her little kid, rat kid, and I was walking down the hall to go do something, get a cup of coffee or something, and she and her kid were walking this way, and we met at the intersection, and the kid ran into my knee, and started crying, and the show was canceled. That was the last year of the show, because her little booger eater cried when he ran into me. Immediately after that, I did Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. I was just brought in to do one episode, and I did the episode, and a couple of weeks later they called and asked me if I'd like to do a couple of more. I said, yeah, sure, I had a great time, 126 episodes later, they killed me. Yeah. And immediately after that, as a matter of fact, while I was doing Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman, they wanted me to do McNamara's Band with John Biner, which was like a takeoff on the Dirty Dozen, a comedy version of the Dirty Dozen, only with 5 guys, not a dozen. And so I wasn't under contract to Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. I was working independently for 126 episodes. So I went to them and I said, they want me to do this pilot. What are we going to do? And they said, go do the pilot. When does it start? And I told them, and he said, okay. So in one day before I left to go do the pilot, I had to do all of my dialogue in Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman for 11 episodes, in one day. And then I started on McNamara's Band, and the day that I was to finish on McNamara's Band, the people from Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman were calling hourly, is he going to be done? Is he going to be done? And yes, he's going to be done, So finally I said, what are we going to do? I said, get me a motel close to the studio and wake me at 8 o'clock in the morning, because I had to be on the set at 9. Wake me at 8 o'clock in the morning and I'll be there, and just shut up and let's do this, So I had no idea what was in store for me. I finished McNamara's Band at 2 o'clock in the morning, go to this motel, got about 3 or 4 hours sleep, because you have to have time to wear down and wind down and stuff, and got up, went to the studio, and found out that I had to do all of my dialogue in 5 more episodes in one day so that they could get back on schedule. So it was pretty grueling.
Well, a lot of your stuff would be classified as grindhouse drive-in type films, but there are two that pretty much stand out because the biker craze was going on, and you played Pillbox in No Mercy Man, which was also known as Train to Kill USA, and you were part of the bike gang in CC and Company, Joe Namath's film.
Yeah, yeah. And I was prepared not to like Joe Namath because I had this big thing about ex-athletes just walking into starring roles in films without any training or anything else. But he's just such a charming guy and so cool to be around that I couldn't get pissed about it. Cool film to work on because I knew Bill and we were back together working. Aunt Margaret was so nice, a sweet woman, and her husband Roger Smith was one of the producers, along with Alan Carr, and everybody knew their role in the whole scheme of things. Roger Smith was on top of everything and making sure that everything was done on time, and everybody had what they needed. And Alan Carr, being the comedian, would show up at lunch and do 20 minutes of stand-up and make everybody, feeling good and all that business. And so we'd, get on with the work. But, yeah, it was very cool.
And I remember you had said you had an incident in a bar after hours when you and Bill Smith came in for a drink and somebody got shitty.
When you're working in the desert in Tucson, Arizona, it's like nothing but dust and dirt, and it's all going down your throat. And so when we finish work, Bill and I the first thing we'd do is stop in the bar in the hotel and throw back a couple of long necks and, get the dirt out of our throats. And we were always in wardrobe, and the wardrobe was admittedly a little stale, okay, so we probably smelled like a couple of dead goats. But, we came in one day for our customary beer, and the bartender knew us, and they just, hit the bar as soon as we hit the stools. And Bill was sitting here, and I was sitting here, and there was a guy in a three-piece suit sitting next to me. And I was just about ready to take a drink, and this idiot next to me says, "What the hell did you guys come in here for?" Because he had no idea who we were, okay? And Bill reached across me and grabbed up every piece of material in this guy's clothes and pulled them. So the guy's face is here, and my beer is here, and Bill's face is here. And Bill says, "We came in to hand out tickets to an ass kicking. You want one?" The guy got up, threw all kinds of money down on the counter, and left. Never saw him again. We'd get a little tipsy, let's say, okay, and then one night we had this big plan where we were going to break into the trailer and take a couple of the choppers and just go for a little ride out in the desert. Would have wound up dead. But Bill and I have always had a great time together.
The other biker film I brought up was it was originally released as No Mercy Man. I think it went to VHS as Train to Kill USA, and again you played the evil biker in that one too.
Yeah. We shot that in Patagonia, Arizona, which is 26 miles from the Mexican border. And it's a small town, it's like 400 people. And we heard, after we got there, that they shipped all the women under 30 somewhere else while we were there making the film because they knew there were, these Hollywood types are just crazy and they're going to rape our women and, nuts. But it was a very rural atmosphere. There was a town marshal and a federal marshal. And the federal marshal, Paul Sorensen, was so good at what he did. And what he did was his marksmanship, okay? He, in 2,000 rounds, only got 4 shots out of the black on the bullseye, okay? That's pretty impressive. So impressive was his work that when Queen Elizabeth came here for a visit, she requested him as a part of her security, okay? The guy was world-renowned. And he's in this small little town in southern Arizona. And he and I, became friends over a period, and we're having dinner one night. And he gets a call at the front desk that there's a fight at the bar, okay? Because there was the gas station and the bar and the hotel and, you know, very small. And so he said, Sid, keep my food warm here. I'll be back in a minute. And so he takes off, and like 2 or 3 minutes later, he's back in the restaurant. I said, you know, I know you're supposed to be the whiz kid and you're the bad guy in town and all that stuff, but you went, broke up a fight and arrested the guys and put them in jail, and you're back here in 2 minutes? He goes, you are from the city, ain't you? And I said, what? He goes, I walked in, I pulled out my club, I knocked them both out, and it's going to be about a month before they want to do that again.
You know, it's funny because a lot of the films that you have done, some of it seems like it disappeared through the cracks. Like I'll bring up one called Busting with Elliott Gould and Robert Blake.
Yeah, that was cool. I have never seen it, ever.
No?
I got the job and I said, oh wow, you know, these two guys are pretty cool. Yeah, I'd love to work with them. And so I show up the first day, and they had already been shooting for a week or so. And we're getting ready to do the first scene, and I say my first line, and then all of a sudden one of them starts talking, and I'm sorry, excuse me, and what's wrong? I said, were there new pages, you know, yellow pages or anything that I didn't get? And they go, oh no, we threw the script away a week ago. Most of that film was improvisational, Busting. All of the elements were there. The skeleton of the script was there. You know, this has to happen, that has to happen, the other thing has to happen. But the dialogue, 90% of it was improvised. Bobby Blake, for the whole time that I was doing that film, would not talk to me. Wouldn't say hello to me in the morning. This guy's a little asshole, okay? So the film is over, a couple of weeks goes down, and I'm in Hollywood, and I'm stopped at a stoplight. And there's a car in back of me honking the horn. And I'm going, what a jackass. It's a red light, okay? Where are we going to go? And all of a sudden, Bobby Blake jumps out of the car in back of me and runs up and goes, hey man, how you doing? It's good to see you. Da, da, da. And that's when I realized that he was such a method actor at that point that he could not break character and be nice to me while we were shooting the film.
Wasn't there something with a squib that you had something with a squib you were telling me about when they shot you at the end?
Oh, yeah, I actually shot myself because I was supposed to get shot in the head. Okay, so they put down a little aluminum foil kind of thing and the squib on top of it, and then mortician's wax to go over the top. So that, of course, they're going to hide all of that. And the wire went down the back of my neck and my sleeve, and I had a gun, and one wire was wrapped around the gun, and the other was wrapped around my thumb. So when I made contact with the gun, the squib would go off. So basically I was shooting myself in the head.
And you were in Galaxy of Terror for Roger Corman. There was a bunch of space things he did. I think it was 80s, right? The mid-80s?
81, I think. 81 or 82. Well, Roger Corman wanted me to do this. He said, you know, get Sid Haig to do the role of Q-Odd. And so, you know, the deal was made, and I said, okay, I'll do it on one condition. He said, you're not getting any more money. I said, I don't want any more money. I know what the money thing is all about, okay? So don't worry about that. He says, well, what's the problem? I said, I want to do it silent. I want to do it mute. And he goes, why? I said, have you read that shit? And he goes, oh yeah. Okay, do it silent. And that was, you know, that was how the thing was done, except the director forced me to say that one stupid line, I live and I die by the crystals. Please.
What are your thoughts on Roger Corman?
I think Roger Corman is the greatest movie genius that there is. This guy knows how to market films, how to make films better than anybody. He has taught me he doesn't know this, but he's taught me everything that I know about marketing. The guy is a genius when it comes to that. We were doing a film called The Wizards of the Lost Kingdom Part 2. There was no Part 1. His theory was that if it did well at the box office, we could make Part 1 cheaper and release it by popular demand. That's genius. Absolute genius. Yeah, it's just, everything that he does is it's got that stamp of just something different about it. And all of his Edgar Allan Poe series of films that he did were great. Amazing. You ought to do a box set of that. That would sell like wildfire. Hollywood is a place that will typecast you immediately. I mean, if you do a credible job as a bank robber, then you are going to play bank robbers for the rest of your life. Okay? And it got so bad with me that I had it. And I just flipped Hollywood off, and I said, if you guys can't figure out that I can do more than just point a gun in somebody's face, then I'm through. And I walked away in 1992. And I had to do something to make a living, and I had done a lot of home study in psychology, so in order to help build a character. So that was kind of the area that I was looking for, and I knew I couldn't spend 10 years to become a psychiatrist. Okay, that would be stupid because I had a family to raise and everything else. But I was still looking in that field, and I found a place called the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, which at the time was the only accredited college of hypnotherapy in the country. And so I applied, and I went down and I took a test because they want to make sure that you're not nuts if you're going to be working with other people. And hey, I wasn't nuts. And so I enrolled, and at the age of 57 or 58, I took out a student loan and went back to school. And about 1,700 hours of instruction. I did my internship and started my practice, and everything was going smooth. And then Quentin Tarantino called me one day at home. Who knows how he got my phone number? He's Quentin Tarantino. He can get anything. And he said, yeah, I get it that you don't want to do any more stupid heavies, and I've written this role as a judge, and I want you to play it, and you will play it. I won't take no for an answer. And so I said, well, okay, boss. And so there I was. I was in Jackie Brown as the judge.
And Pam didn't expect you to be there, and I heard she lost her shit when she walked on the scene.
Oh, yeah. He did, on purpose, he did not tell Pam that he had cast me, okay? And when she saw me, she just cracked up. I mean, she literally hit the floor, okay? And it was amazing because we hadn't seen one another in 27 years, okay? And it was like we just had lunch the day before. The relationship just picked right back up, And so, yeah, we had fun doing that. And Quentin Tarantino is the consummate movie buff, because the whole time we were shooting, he was reciting every line I ever said in any movie that I ever did. And I said, how do you remember this shit? I don't even remember what I said, okay? He was on top of it all the time, and always has been.
And you got offered, I believe you said 4 different roles in Kill Bill?
Yeah. I don't know what the deal was there. I mean, I was supposed to be playing the orderly who was pimping the unconscious Uma Thurman, okay, in the hospital there. And then somebody else got that role, and then he gave me another role, and somebody else got that role, and it all wound up with me playing the bartender. And, I was fine with that because I just like working with him. He's just so cool to work with. Energy that's amazing.